Picture this. You've been sitting at the same lunch table for 58 years. Not you, obviously. Your whole family. Grandma, grandpa, your parents, and now you. Same table, same rules, same lunch monitor telling everyone how much food they're allowed to eat. And then one Tuesday morning you just stand up, grab your tray, and walk away. That is exactly what happened last week in the global pond. One of the most powerful oil-producing countries on the planet, the United Arab Emirates, just looked at the world's most famous oil club, the one they helped build, the one they'd been part of for nearly 6 decades, and said, "We're done." And here's the thing nobody's talking about. This isn't just a frog hopping away from a lunch table. This might be the first crack in a dam that could change how the entire world pays for energy. But to understand why this matters, I need to take you back, way back, to 1960, to 5 frogs in a room who decided to pull off one of the greatest power moves in pond history. Oil is not just the stuff that goes in cars. Oil is in everything. Plastic bottles, crayons, the rubber on your sneakers, the roads you ride your bike on, the jet fuel that gets your family to vacation. Without oil, the modern world basically doesn't work. And oil doesn't grow on trees. It's buried deep underground, and most of it, like an embarrassing amount of it, is buried under the deserts and seabeds of the Middle East. So imagine the global pond for a second. Every lily pad is a country, and buried underneath certain lily pads are the juiciest, most valuable flies you have ever seen. Not just any flies, magical flies that power almost everything in the pond. Now, for most of history, the frogs who owned those lily pads weren't actually the ones in charge. Big, powerful frogs from faraway countries, mostly in Europe and America, had come in, set up their own fishing equipment, and were scooping up the flies at their price. The local frogs were getting paid, sure, but not fairly. So in 1960, 5 frogs had a meeting in Baghdad, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Venezuela, and they said, "What if we decided the price of our own flies?" They called their new club OPEC, the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries. But in Frogman language, we'll call it the Fly Collectors Club. For the first 10 years, nobody cared. The club was basically just frogs writing memos. The price of oil was actually falling, all the way down to $1.30 per barrel. Not great. But then, boom, 1973, and the Fly Collectors Club showed the whole pond exactly what it was capable of. Let me paint you a picture of 1973 that your brain will never forget. A war breaks out in the Middle East. Egypt and Syria attack Israel on one of the holiest days of the Jewish calendar. The United States rushes in to help Israel, and the Arab members of the Fly Collectors Club are furious. So they do something nobody had ever done before. They turn off the flies. Not forever, just they stopped selling oil to the United States and other countries that supported Israel, like slamming the lunchroom doors shut and saying, "No lunch for you today, or tomorrow, or the day after." Within a few months, the price of a barrel of oil went from $3 to $12. That's like if your $3 school lunch suddenly cost $12. In America, people waited in line for hours just to put gas in their car. Some gas stations ran out completely and put up signs, "No gas today." People got into fights in the parking lot. The whole Western economy went into chaos. Inflation, job losses, political panic, all because a group of frogs decided to close the fly tap. The entire world suddenly knew one very important thing. The Fly Collectors Club was the most powerful economic force on the planet. By 1970, OPEC controlled half of all the oil in the world. Half. That is not a lunchroom. That is the only lunchroom. But here's where our story gets interesting, because power doesn't last forever if you're not careful. Through the 1980s and 90s, new frogs started finding their own flies. Alaska, the North Sea in Europe, the Gulf of Mexico. Suddenly, OPEC's share of the pond dropped from 50% to more like 35%. The club was still powerful, but not untouchable anymore. Then in the 2000s, China started growing super fast and needing huge amounts of oil. OPEC's power bounced back. Oil prices shot up to $100 per barrel and stayed there for years. But here's the sneaky twist, and this is the part that keeps happening over and over again, like a video game boss that just won't stay down. Every time OPEC drove prices super high, other frogs around the world thought, if oil is that expensive, maybe it's worth digging in my own backyard. And in America, they invented something called shale drilling, a brand new way to pull oil out of rocks that nobody thought possible before. Suddenly, the US went from being a small-time fly catcher to becoming one of the biggest fly catchers on the entire planet. And OPEC's power weakened again. So in 2016, the club pulled a desperate move. They blew it up and rebuilt it even bigger. They added 11 new members, including Russia, one of the biggest oil producers on Earth. Now they called themselves OPEC Plus. Together they controlled about half the pond's flies once again. But, and here's your middle-of-the-video curiosity question, why did adding more frogs to the club actually make things worse for some of them? I'll answer that in just a moment. But first, you need to meet the frog that just walked out the door. Meet the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, a small but incredibly ambitious lily pad on the Persian Gulf, basically the size of South Carolina, but with some of the world's richest oil fields underneath it. The UAE joined OPEC back in 1967, and for most of those 58 years, they played by the rules. But lately, the rules were making them mad. Here's why. The UAE had built up the ability to produce 4.8 million barrels of oil per day. That's like having a supercharged fly-catching machine that can run at full speed. But OPEC was telling them, sorry, you can only use 3.2 million barrels a day. Club rules. That's like having a race car and being forced to drive at 30 miles per hour. Every day, the UAE was watching nearly 1.6 million barrels of possible income just sitting there, unused, while their OPEC membership card sat in their wallet like a hall pass that only got them to the bathroom. Now here's the answer to our curiosity question. Why did adding more frogs make things worse? Because every time OPEC tried to raise prices by cutting production, fewer flies on the market, higher prices. Other countries outside the club just pumped more. America, Canada, Brazil, Guyana, Argentina, they filled in the gap. So prices didn't really go up much anyway. All that sacrifice from the OPEC frogs, and for what? The UAE kept saying, hey, these cuts aren't working. The Saudis, the big boss frogs who basically run OPEC, said, stay in line. And now the UAE's patience ran out. But here's the secret ingredient nobody's saying out loud. This isn't just about oil. This is about three frogs who all pushed the UAE toward the exit at the exact same time. The first frog? Saudi Arabia. UAE-Saudi relations have been going sour for years. The two countries disagree about foreign policy in places like Yemen, Sudan, and Somalia. And when Iran, a rival power in the region, started a war that hit the UAE directly, the Saudis' response was kind of a shrug. The UAE was furious. If your supposed best friend barely reacts when someone punches you, maybe they're not your best friend after all. Leaving OPEC, a club Saudi Arabia basically controls, is the UAE's way of saying, we don't need your table anymore.
The second frog? Russia. Russia joined OPEC Plus in 2016, and they've been a terrible club member ever since. Russia needs every single dollar it can get to fund its ongoing war in Ukraine, so they quietly pump more oil than their OPEC quota allows. They cheat. And to make it worse, Russia supports Iran, the country that attacked the UAE. The UAE leaving OPEC Plus also shrinks Russia's influence over global oil markets. That's two birds with one lily pad. The third frog? The United States. The UAE has been getting very close to America lately, and America really wants oil prices to come down. Lower oil prices mean cheaper gas, which helps the US economy. So the US loves the idea of the UAE pumping more oil freely. In fact, just days before the UAE announced it was leaving OPEC, the US Treasury gave the UAE a special financial lifeline called a swap line, basically a guarantee that the UAE can always get US dollars when it needs them. It's like giving someone a VIP pass right before they do you a huge favor. Was that deal connected to the OPEC exit? Nobody's officially saying yes, but the timing is very suspicious. Three frogs, three pushes, and one very decisive hop toward the exit. So here's the big question. Is this the beginning of the end for OPEC? In the short term, not much changes immediately. There's a war going on, and Iran currently controls a super narrow waterway called the Strait of Hormuz, basically a skinny little log bridge that oil tankers have to cross to get out of the Persian Gulf. With that log bridge blocked, the UAE can't even export most of its extra oil yet. But in the medium term, OPEC loses another piece of its puzzle. They now control even less of the world's oil supply, down to about 33% of global production. That's not a majority anymore. You can't boss around a lunchroom if you only control a third of the food. And in the long term, this is where it gets really wild. One energy expert named Kingsmill Bond said something brilliant about the UAE's move. He said the UAE isn't just trying to pump more oil now, they're racing to sell as much oil as possible before the world stops needing oil at all. Electric cars, solar energy, wind power, they're all growing fast. The age of oil won't last forever, and the UAE wants to cash in every last fly before the other frogs discover they can eat bugs instead. Saudi Arabia's plan is the opposite. Keep prices high, sell less but earn more. The UAE's plan is pump everything now while it still matters. Two frogs, same pond. completely opposite strategies. And that disagreement, that's the real crack in the dam. Because if the UAE leaves and does well, if pumping freely without OPEC rules turns out to be a great idea, then other smaller members might ask, wait, why are we still here? Countries like Angola and Ecuador already left, Qatar left. Now the UAE. Every exit makes the next one easier. The cheating that was already happening inside the club will get worse. Russia needs money for its war. Venezuela does whatever the US tells it to these days. And if Saudi Arabia can't keep everyone in line, OPEC Plus might just quietly fall apart, one frog at a time. So let's recap today's adventure in the global pond. A small but powerful frog named the UAE just hopped away from the Fly Collectors Club after 58 years, the biggest pond exit in recent memory. They're tired of being told how many flies they can catch. They're fed up with the Saudi boss frog, suspicious of the Russian frog, and cozying up to the American eagle. And deep down, they're playing a smarter, longer game, racing to sell their flies before the world decides it doesn't need flies anymore. Is OPEC done? Not yet, but it is wobbling. And in the global pond, sometimes all it takes is one big frog to hop away, for everyone else to start asking why they're still sitting at that lunch table. Stay curious, watch the water. In the global pond, the biggest frogs don't always win, the smartest ones do. Keep your eyes on the water. I'm the Frogman, and I'll see you in the next one.